Welcome to Ghost of a Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Lanyadoo. I'm an astrologer, psychic medium, and animal communicator, and I'm going to give you your weekly horoscope and no bullshit mystical advice for living your very best life. Welcome back to Ghost of a Podcast. This is a special episode. I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed making it. Obviously, these are some dark days, there's some tough times, and it's really easy to get wrapped up in feelings of hopelessness and fear about the future. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot about the next generations, the children, the children who are inheriting our world, but also the children and like, what are their spiritual conditions? What are their feelings about the world and how they handle the world? And I have a kid bestie. She started asking me questions about astrology and spirituality. And so I thought it would be a great idea to record it for the podcast. And that is what we went ahead and did. And a big part of what I think about when I think about the spiritual wellness of children in the context of astrology is that kids have access to astrology in ways they never did before. I mean, it's new and different. And I think it's really important that we consider, whether you're talking about parents or just people who are creating content that kids have access to, or where you know you have a lot of children followers, it's important that we consider the impact that we're having on kids, because I think children are really sensitive to stereotyping. And I mean, we all are, but in particular, children are. I think there's just a ton of spiritual and astrological content out there that is heavily based on stereotypes like memes and stuff like that, which are done kind of in fun, but also can have a destructive impact on kids. So it's something I think about a lot. I hope you have your own kid bestie or your own older friend bestie, and that you also have friends that are of different generations, and that it helps you to expand your sense of the world. Okay, so you guys aren't going to believe what's happening right now. I'm here with an amazing 11-year-old who is going to ask me questions that are really giving you answers. It's going to be amazing. So, hi, introduce yourself.
Hello.
Tell me, what's your name and where do you live?
My name is Hazel, and I live in Berkeley, California.
And how old are you, Hayes?
I'm 11 years old.
Are you 11 and a half or are you 11 proper?
I'm 11 and a fourth.
You're 11 and a fourth, so the kid can do math. That's great. Okay, cool.
So I'm going to ask you, why do astrologers not want kids to see their full chart?
Okay, that is a really good question. And let me tell you the answer is, first of all, not all astrologers don't want kids to see their full chart, but I don't. And the reason why is because I believe that it's really important when you're a kid to be able to figure out who you are on your own terms and to not have an adult tell you who you are. And that's the problem with astrology is, in order to get an astrology reading, it needs to be read by an adult. And when you're a kid, you have to listen to adults. And so we kind of like kids accept what adults say as the truth. And I would never want you to hear that, for instance, let's say I said to you, when you grow up, you will have a pet tiger. And then exactly. And then you would grow up and then be like, oh my God, an astrologer said I would have a pet tiger. And then some crazy person would offer you a tiger one day. And you'd be like, I have to take that tiger because an astrologer told me. That could ruin your life. Tigers are dangerous. Don't have a pet tiger. No, that's my point. I know.
Like, tigers are adorable.
I know, they're adorable when they're not eating your face.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you see where I'm going with that, is that it's you know, you can't really separate with astrology, with kids, the fact that you're hearing information from adults and kids are inclined to automatically believe what adults say is true. And so I would never want you to feel like you are locked into being a certain way, or you could never be a certain way because some dumb astrology chart said so.
Or me getting a tiger.
Well, I feel like you getting a tiger, you should choose that. / don't do that. But if you did that, you shouldn't do it because some astrologer told you so.
Yes.
You see where I'm going with that?
I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay. How do astrologers find things out about kids when they are still growing up?
That is a really good question. It's such a cool and confusing question because, and this might not exactly make sense, but like if a person has a baby and they come in for an astrology reading, I can see what's going to happen in that adult person's marriage or partnership based on the baby's chart. Isn't that cool? So
that's weird.
I know. It doesn't really make sense because the thing about astrology that's confusing / super cool is that it's not based exclusively on linear time. So the birth chart, and tell me if this doesn't make sense, but the birth chart basically shows us the past and the future and the present, all of the things. Yeah, it's super cool. You guys can't see it, just make it
if you were to give a newborn baby a reading, how could you find out the past when there was no past?
Well, that's a great question. Because from my perspective as an astrologer, nothing exists in isolation. And so a baby comes from human people. And those human people, whatever is going on for them in the year leading up to the birth of the child, is in the chart. Our ancestors, so the people that come before us, are in our chart. So that kind of tells us a person's nature. Now, that said, when people come to me and they ask me questions about babies, I don't predict who the baby's going to be. Instead, what I do is I look at medical issues and developmental and learning issues, which is what I would do if somebody came to me asking about you, an 11-year-old. I would focus on learning and socialization and health.
But I don't want you to tell me about my problems.
Exactly. That's why I wouldn't read you. That's why I wouldn't read you. Well, these things wouldn't necessarily be problems. It could be that your learning style is that you're so smart that you need extracurricular activities, or that you get really bored and that's because you're not being challenged. It could be something really fantastic, or it could be something challenging, but I wouldn't predict who you're gonna be.
Yeah.
I would only help the adults who are supporting you to grow up in the most supportive way possible, basically.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Cookie break.
Cookie break. My friends, I need to tell you about this organization called DonorsChoose.org. This isn't an ad. They're not paying me to talk about this. I just really believe in them. What they do is they connect the public to public schools. We all know that public schools suffer. They are grossly underfunded and teachers are underpaid. Kids don't have the resources that they need. So DonorsChoose.org is a resource where you can donate. Basically, what happens is you go to their website and you can find a classroom to support. Teachers have already uploaded the supplies that they need, like desks and chairs and books and technology, things that really should be provided for classrooms but aren't. And then you can throw in $2 or you can throw in $200. You can throw in as much money as you have or want to throw in, and you get to see where the money's going to. And you can choose an area that's near to you to support, or you can think about some place in the country that really needs support that is grossly underfunded. And you can be, I'm not going to call you a hero, but I wouldn't say it would be wrong to call you a hero. Come on, be a hero. Go to DonorsChoose.org and support public schools so kids like Hazel can have excellent childhoods that lay a foundation for fantastic futures.
We're back.
And we're back. Hit me with another question, Hazy Haze.
Oh, okay. In this day and age, kids are growing up with phones and computers and a lot of technology that your generation did not have.
No, girl, we did not.
How do you think this affects children spiritually, and how do you think it affects them in their everyday life?
It does take us away from learning how to listen to our inner voice. And it does take us away from kind of maintaining ourselves and developing a personal relationship with the self, which is complicated. It also makes the world smaller in a way that can be really spiritually uplifting. It depends. But your question really got me to thinking about how your generation has access to astrology. Astrology is all over the internet. And the thing that worries me about that is astrology is a really good tool for adults who have already had experiences with themselves and figuring out who they are. Whereas if you're starting middle school or you're, still in middle school, you're still figuring out who you are and how you fit in. And honestly, I'm in my 40s and I'm still figuring out who I am and how I fit in. But it's really different in your teens and your preteens than it is, in your 20s onwards, I think.
Yes.
And so I think that it's really important that adults and parents and guardians have conversations with kids about the spiritual and psychological value of astrology and to kind of talk about whether or not it's good for them. Because I think the same thing can be true for religion. Religion is a really big part of a lot of family lives, and it's not for other people. And I think having conversations about faith and about spirituality is really, really important. And it's also like, I'm not sure if it's happening as much these days as it used to.
Yes. So that actually leads us to our next question.
Hit me.
Which is, what does religion and spirituality have to do with astrology, and how do all of those things overlap into like one thing?
The fun thing about astrology is that I think you ask that question to different astrologers and we're all going to give you a different answer, because astrology is a system of understanding the world. It's a system for understanding human nature. I'm in fact going to pull up an astrology chart right now so you can see it. Okay. But astrology is not a belief system, and it's not a religion at all. And what it is, see, there it is. I just pulled up an astrology chart for you. And you see it's a circle with a bunch of symbols in it.
I see the women's symbol, the male symbol, a moon, something that looks like a mutilated star, a 4 that looks like someone stretched it out a lot, a pair of headphones, a key, a Christian cross with a little horseshoe attached to it.
Sweet Jesus, this is crazy.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
You don't know what you're looking at. Respect. Respect. So basically what you just described was a bunch of the glyphs is what they're called. They're the symbols that represent the planets. And so what... Excusez-moi. So basically this here is Saturn, what you call the Christian cross with a horseshoe on it. And Saturn in this birth chart you're looking at is at 7 degrees of Aries in 23 minutes. And so basically what astrology
Aries is the Greek god of war.
/ also a sign. So here's where it's like astrology is really, really old. It's really, really old. And most religions have historically included astrology because when you think about it, back in the olden years and days, you looked up at the stars and they were the most magical spiritual things in town, right? They lit up the night. This was before electricity, think about it. And so there's a lot of spiritual roots in astrology, and there's a lot of astrological roots in spirituality. The story, I don't know if you know the story of Jesus, but the 3 wise men were astrologers. They found him through the stars, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of astrology rooted in spiritual beliefs,
and in religion?
And in religion, yes. And in religion, although most religions are not super pro-astrology, which have, roots to that, which are both political and structural. But that's a whole other conversation. You're wearing my glasses. They're very cute on you. / you look like you're about 30 years older.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So the thing about religion and spirituality and astrology is that astrology is something that is not easily quantifiable. And because of that, people call it a belief system. And astrology touches on the celestial truths that are related to the human condition and the human experience. And that makes it feel really spiritual. But it's not a belief system. And so the way that they overlap is a little bit individual. You can approach astrology as a way to understand stock market trends. Yep, that's what some astrologers do.
Excusez-moi?
Yep, it's like timing events. Another thing you can do with astrology is you can look at cycles of fertility and plan when to have a baby. You can do more of what I do, which is counsel people on how to be healthy and right with themselves, or how to understand past experiences and plan for the future. There's a lot of different ways of using astrology, but if you want to use astrology as a tool for spirituality, that's a great way to use astrology. It's just not the only way to use astrology.
As I can see on your complicated chart that looks like a math problem.
Exactly. Astrology is a math problem, actually. It's a good way to put it. It is a math problem. It's a math problem that basically has a lot of psychological and spiritual implications in it.
Math just turned into something that I don't know.
Correct. / people listening should know that you're wearing an amazing jumpsuit with constellations on it.
Well, I don't know what constellations I'm wearing, but I see stuff that looks like suns and a half moon.
And a half moon, exactly. And also just lots of stars and stuff. So It's kind of everywhere, isn't it? astrology?
It's literally, this room smells of astrology.
That is amazing. I thank you very much. I'm going to have to quote you on that.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you. Now, did I answer that question sufficiently for you?
Yes.
Okay.
You did.
Do you have any other questions for me?
I do. We sort of just talked about it, but I think there's more. I am Jewish, and I go to Hebrew school.
Still?
Yes, I am starting the bat mitzvah program next year, though.
Fancy schmancy, because you're
Yes.
getting old, lady.
Yes. And at my Hebrew school, people talk about God. And a lot of religions do. A lot of religions revolve around the idea of God. And what, in most cases, is God a symbol of for kids and grown-ups alike?
That's a great, super small question. That was sarcasm. It's a big question.
I know that.
Okay, cool. So I guess before I answer your question, I want to ask you, what do you think God is a symbol of?
Well, like, for most people, it's a symbol of power and something to uphold the idea of. And, like, you can find it in Greek religions, in Jewish religions, in Christian religions, in Muslim religions. And all over the world you can find it. But I think for everyone, it's an idea of the greatest power. The greatest, like, power and the biggest thing that we could ever think of.
First of all, it's important for me to say that nobody has the answer. And religious leaders will tell you that they have the answer. Religions will tell you they have the answer. Spiritual people with great conviction will tell you they have the answer.
But no one does?
No one exactly does, because it's a mystery. That said, the role of God is the question you're asking me, right? What is the role of God for kids and adults?
Well, what role does it have in astrology and spirituality for kids and adults alike?
So I would say that astrology itself is not concerned with a God, because it's not a religion and it's not a belief system. You know, the mythology that is kind of underlying the story of Aries, exactly, Greek mythology and all this sort of stuff, of the planets and the signs, that is not really concerned with a singular God, is it? It's more about lots of gods and goddesses.
It's also just symbols that help you understand the different signs and people's charts.
Yeah, astrology is those symbols that help you understand signs and charts really are symbols that help you understand different parts of the human experience and different parts of life. Does that make sense?
How do you talk about God?
I believe that there is a spiritual world. I believe in a greater order of things. And I don't believe that I understand it. I guess that's really what it is. I believe it's so big that I don't understand it. And I don't feel the need to understand it in order to have a sense of faith in it and a willingness to try to be my best self. And I do think a lot of people use religion as a way to structure their morality, you know, and in a way, I think my spirituality is also related to my morality, my sense of integrity and my willingness to be kind and sometimes do the more difficult thing because I believe it's the right thing. That is tied up in my spirituality. So what do you think God is?
For me, I feel that everyone should have their own sort of religion in themselves. I believe that the universe is like a big, powerful thing. But I also believe that people themselves are big, powerful things. I think that everyone should feel that they are equal to one another, but still have that kind of self-control that they can make their own rules for themselves and be responsible for themselves.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds like my religion. I'm sold. Let me ask you this. You've learned a little bit about astrology.
Yes.
And what do you think? How do you think astrology plays into free will? How do you think it plays into God? All those kinds of really big concepts we're talking about.
Well, I think that astrology is a way to know yourself in a way that you might not have known before. And I think that this plays a part in religion and spirituality because knowing yourself is sort of like a revelation. And feeling like you know yourself is a really good thing.
So have you ever been in a situation that was social or with your family, so like hanging out with friends or with your family or whatever, where you were dealing with something difficult or painful and your spirituality is what you turn to?
Turning to my sort of sense of spirituality means coming into myself and just thinking about who are you and what do you want for the world and for yourself. And I feel that retracting into yourself can help you in ways because you can really find out who you are by just being inside of yourself for a second. And you can do that many, many times because finding yourself as you go means that you retract into yourself many different times in your life when you feel like, who am I and what do I want?
It's very wise. It's hard to believe you're 11 years old. I'm just saying, 11 and a quarter, pretty impressive.
I know math.
More than I do. So this is our in conclusion moment.
Life is complicated.
Isn't it though? Isn't it though? We're going to have to Google this later on.
We are.
We're going to Google it.
The internet has it all.
The internet has it all.
Every year they say the end is near, but we're still here. Yeah, we're still here.